Hi, this is David White with the 20th in the series that we call A Perfect Life, taken from the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew uh, chapters 5, 6, and 7. Today our scripture is Matthew 5, 14 through 16. It's the scripture that comes directly after the Beatitudes. I'm going to read the scripture today from an interpretation of the New Testament called The Message, and thought it was quite interesting in regard to this scripture. Starting with 5:13, it says, "Let me tell you why you're here. You're here to be salt seasoning that brings out the God flavors in this earth. If you lose your saltiness, how people taste godliness? You've lost your usefulness and will end up in the garbage. Here's another way to put it. You're here to be light, bringing out the God colors in the world. God is not a secret to be kept. We're going public with this, as public as a city on a hill. If I make you light bearers, you don't think I'm going to hide you under a bucket, do you? I'm putting you on a light stand. Now that I've put you there on a hilltop, on a light stand, shine. Keep open house. Be generous with your lives. By opening up to others, you'll prompt people to open up with God, the generous Father in heaven." So, there you have it. That's what we're here for. Now, a couple words. The ye, or you, to me, and I hasten to add one more time that anything I say here is just my opinion. It's I'm not going to argue with you about it. I do like to hear your opinions, but I certainly don't say that I've got the right way to interpret the Bible. You, I believe the you here means people who believe in the sanctity of the Beatitudes. Salt of the earth. Well, salt, to people in Jesus' time, salt was a preservative as it is today. It was pure. It came from the sun and the sea, and it provided flavoring as it does today for their food. And then light of the world. What is a light? A light is to be seen, or to allow one to be seen. It can act as a guide, can act as a warning. But we're here to be the salt and light of the world. And incidentally, he didn't say salt and light of the church. He said the salt and light of the world. And I find that in every interpretation of the Bible that I've looked at. Now, in the last 100 or so years, psychiatrists have identified, depending on the researcher, 8 to 16 distinctly different types of personalities. Consequently, we're all in some extent different from each other. I want to review with you this example about the little worms, and talk about it more later. Well, how's it going to work? All right, here's a wheel, and you've got the spokes, and you've got this little worm crawling this way. You got this little worm crawling this way. Now, when you first look at it, it looks like those two worms are crawling in opposite directions. But when you consider that this is the center, and if you consider that the center is God, then it's not that they're traveling in opposite directions. They're both traveling toward the power. It's just that they didn't start from the same place. Now, if we put all kind of spokes in this thing, you'd have the different types of personalities. We don't come from the same place. Consequently, we don't see the world alike. Consequently, judge not, lest ye be judged, and so forth, as Jesus talked about. St. Augustine, if you're in Florida, St. Augustine, if you're about anywhere else, said, love God and do what you want. Now, that's strong, but gosh, there's a lot of truth in it. This world is not a playground, it's a schoolroom, and it's here for us to play in and work in and whatever, but primarily to learn. Now, last time I talked about 3 things of the world that I misused and screwed up. It's not that these things are bad, and I'm talking about money, booze, and sex. It's not that they're bad. As a matter of fact, they're 3 of the greatest things that the Lord has given us when they're used correctly. And let's look at what I think is correctly. We're put here, each of us is given a dream. And that dream is God's will for us. Some of us, it takes money or wealth to do our dream. Let me give you an example. My best friend in high school, I'll call him Phil because that's his name. He and I saw the world and see the world just exactly, in most cases, opposite. Phil knew what he was put here to do, I believe, by the 6th grade, or the time he is 10 or 12 years old. And he did that very successfully throughout his life. Now, in order for Phil to do what he was put here to do, he had to accumulate wealth because it took it in his business. He never, I don't believe, thought about money for money's sake as I did. Phil thought in terms of how to get done what God's will for me is to do. Took getting a lot of money, and he got a lot of money. That's a great reason to accumulate wealth. Booze. For 9 people out of 10, so we're told, booze is a great social lubricant. It's a great thing to use at parties or to relax in the afternoon and so forth. For about 1 out of 10, and I'm one of them, it's used as a substitute for God. And that's not good. It's no accident that bottled spirits is a term used for alcohol. Because for a lot of us, well, for that 10% of us, it in fact becomes a substitute for God. I think I've already mentioned when I was young, I could take a couple of 3 drinks and get what I consider today normal. Then after a while, I quit working and the downward spiral began. But for most people, booze is a great social lubricant, and God gave it to us, and we ought to use it. Now then, about sex. I want to do something here that I've never done before, And it's going to take a little time. But in talking about sex, God knows it doesn't behoove any of us to judge the other's sex conduct. But the greatest opinion that I've ever run across comes from a book called Alcoholics Anonymous. And you're not going to be able to retain much of what I read here. We can't by hearing. But if you want to look this up later, just Google or go online to Alcoholics Anonymous and Google Big Book, and it's on pages 68, 69, and 70. A little on page 68, a little on 70. Most of it on page 69. A lot of people won't have much trouble remembering that locale. Now, to read what it says now about sex. Many of us needed an overhauling there. But above all, we tried to be sensible on the question. It's so easy to get way off the track. Here we find human opinions running to extremes, absurd extremes perhaps. One set of voices cry that sex is a lust of our lower nature, a base necessity of procreation. Then we have the voices who cry for sex and more sex, who bewail the institution of marriage, who think that most of the troubles of the race are traceable to sex causes. They think we don't have enough of it, or that it isn't the right kind. They see its significance everywhere. One school would allow man no flavor for his fare, and the other would have us all on a straight pepper diet. We want to stay out of this controversy. We don't want to be the arbiter of anyone's sex conduct. We all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. What can we do about them? We reviewed our own conduct over the past years. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Whom had we hurt? Did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? Where were we at fault? What should we have done instead? We got this all down on paper and looked at it. In this way, we tried to shape a sane and sound ideal for our future sex life. We subjected each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not? We asked God to mold our ideals and help us live up to them. We remembered always that our sex powers were God-given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, nor to be despised and loathed. Whatever our ideal turns out to be, we must be willing to grow toward it. We must be willing to make amends where we've done harm, provided that we don't bring about still more harm in so doing. In other words, we treat sex as we would any other problem. In mediation, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter. The right answer will come if we want it. God alone can judge our sex situation. God alone can judge our sex situation. Counsel with other persons is often desirable, but we let God be the final judge. We realize that some people are as fanatical about sex as others are loose. We avoid hysterical thinking or advice. Suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. Does this mean that we're going to go off the rail? Some people tell us so, but this is only a half-truth. It depends on us and our motives. If we are sorry for what we've done and have the honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we'll be forgiven and we'll have learned our lesson. If we're not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we're quite sure to go off the wagon. We're not theorizing. These facts are out of our experience. So, I'm quite certain very few people will remember those words, but you've got the citation if you want to look them up. So, I thank you for being here this time. Went a little longer this time than normal, but I thought it was justified. Uh, Hope you've had a good time this time, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Good day.